Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here with you for the Week 8 athlete briefing for our Team Wilpers Half Marathon Run Challenge. Very excited to be back here with you on this Friday evening. I hope everyone is having an amazing Week 7. Speaking of Week 7, per usual, we're going to do a little bit of a Week 7 review. So starting the week with our 60-minute endurance run, nice and easy. We're focusing on volume, getting that aerobic training time, getting the miles logged. We're just continuing to build up that total volume bit by bit. Workout number 2 of this week, 45-minute progression run, moving all the way from easy to threshold. So this is a great opportunity here at this part of the cycle to be touching in on those paces. Once again, ranging easy all the way to threshold. So lots of time spent at our marathon pace, at our half marathon pace, pushing a little bit at the end. Really awesome workout, especially right now. So by the time the workout was done, it's been 25 minutes between our sub-threshold and our threshold zone. Exactly where most people are running the half marathon. Great workout of the week. Hopefully you're starting to get a sense a little bit, we'll talk about it in a bit, of where maybe your pace falls on that spectrum, a pace you can hold for 13.1 miles. And then our key run number 3 of this week, always in the endurance world, the long runs. We're looking at 9 to 11, so we're getting within striking distance of that half marathon. Knocking on the door, but just not there quite yet. We'll be there very soon. So the goal of these is really to focus not just on the miles, but really on the time on feet. So we talk a lot about relaxing the pace of these runs, making the effort feel light, and as the miles start to accumulate, that starts to feel more and more challenging. But just remember, you need to back down the effort, because once again, not only are the miles important, but the time is important. So especially if you're not planning on running all the way to 13 or beyond miles, what you can do in a shorter run is slow your pace down enough to where your time is getting close to what you might expect on a race day. So if you're expecting to run a little bit faster on race day, when you slow down that easy pace in your workout, the time might be very, very comparable to what you're planning on in your race itself. So once again, don't forget about time on feet. So let's say a 2-hour workout that covers 11 miles is just as good almost as a 2-hour workout that covers 10.5 miles. It just means we still got 2 hours time on feet. Didn't get quite as far, but the effort maybe was a little bit relaxed. So once again, I'll continue repeating myself until someone stops me. Time on feet is what we're going for here in these longest long runs right now. Just a reminder, go on the website, check the box. We're still chasing that 100% completion percentage start to finish. And if you've lost it, that's okay. This is a long challenge. Next time for sure, 100%. But you want to get as close as you can to 100%. That is certainly the clearest pathway to success. Has the highest completion percentage of workouts. Keep going on that website, checking your box, get credit for doing the workouts. Nothing else is going to give you a great comparison in future challenges and future programs of where your completion percentage ended here and how the race went versus a different training cycle. So one more time, check the box. Now on to week 8. So we're starting with our 45-minute endurance run with striders. So an oldie but goodie, kind of going back to this one. Just as a reminder, the striders are put in there not to make the workout more challenging, not to make the workout an interval workout or a speed workout. We just want to vary the cadence a little bit. We want to vary the stride length. We want to vary your footfalls. So that's the point for the addition of the strides there at the end of the workout. Workout 2, 45-minute endurance run. So you certainly feel free to add strides if you want, or feel free to omit them. It's written with them out of the workout. It's just to have a nice, easy, leisurely run. And then our final key run of the week, our long run, 6 to 8 miles. So an obvious regression. This is a pullback week across the board. No mystery there. Want to back off the miles a little bit. Similarly, still keep it nice and easy. What we're trying to do in this week is we're trying to keep your fitness as high by doing as little work as possible. So we want to pull back here, maintain what we've got, and kind of get ready for that final push to come in the next couple weeks. So plenty of questions, very good, very reasonable questions about kind of why we pull back right now and what's to come. So week 9, definitely it's going to be another up week. So we're going to take our drop down right here, and in week 9, we're going to come back. We're going to have intensity. We'll have either our longest long run or to probably match the long run you've done thus far. So it kind of depends where you are on that range there, your comfort level with how the long runs are going. That's going to be a little bit up to you. The guidance is going to bump up just an itty bitty bit, but it's going to either probably match your longest long run or just push just gently above it. That'll be in week 9. It's a great question of why are we pulling off the gas right here? And the biggest reason that we're taking this drop down right now as opposed to somewhere else is the best thing we can do for all the athletes is not only to prioritize the finish of the race, but we got to prioritize getting you to the starting line of the race healthy and able to compete. That's the best thing actually we can do, is get you to the starting line healthy and ready to run. A lot of things can happen on the race course. So over the scope of this training, we're coming into our 8th week out of 10 or so, multiple months of tough workouts, volume add, intensity add, plenty of incline. I'm sure you remember the incline that we've done over the scope of the challenge. These are all the things that we've put your body through over the scope now of 7 weeks almost. A lot of things happen. There are aches and pains and strains and dings and dunks, etc. This drop down right here is the opportunity to get as healthy as possible in advance of this race. So we want to drop down, give you an opportunity to try to work on some of those things, all the little niggles that can creep in over the scope of training. This is a great opportunity during this week to take the extra time that you're usually training and do the body work, the foam rolling, the stretching, the hot soaks, cold soaks, compression legs, whatever it might be that does it for you. They all work as long as you do them, but you have to do them. So this is, once again, great opportunity this week. Pull back the intensity, pull back the volume, work on your body, try to think about getting your body as fit and ready to go for that final push going into our final week of training and then your actual race week, which is the 2 things coming up on the flip side of this. For athletes with April and May races, you would also want to go ahead and take this as an unload when we come back in week 9 and 10 of this challenge. Those are going to be long runs for you. They're going to be long runs in week 9 for everybody. Week 10, when other people are racing, you're going to be doing another long run, and then you're kind of going into this higher mileage holding pattern, especially for races that we're working with in the extension challenge to the end of April. If your race is all the way not till the end of May, let's say like the Brooklyn Half Marathon, you might want to start working on the low end of that pace ranges if you feel like the mileage is too high and you can't sustain it. Kind of goes back to what I was talking about, that the last thing we want to do is burn anybody out. So feel free to stay a little bit lower if you feel like you need to, and then you can kind of pop up close to your actual race date. Week 8 challenge here, the calm before the storm. So let us know how you're planning to use this week to get ready for the final push. We'll pick our favorite and send a little TW swag your way. Continuing to have a blast doing this. Make sure to tag at Team Wilpers, at Team Wilpers Run Challenge, and use hashtag Team Wilpers Half to participate. So a few questions that have come up, and this is I think the most pertinent to everybody. Pacing for a long race, where to start, at or above easy. And so for the sake of this conversation, we're going to say that race is the half marathon. And the pacing of it and picking the pace that you're going to use for that race sure does depend on a bunch. I think we've touched upon this at some point in the past, and I can't remember. But the first thing is it absolutely depends upon your comfortability with the distance. Is 13.1 the longest distance you've ever run? It's going to be very, very different than someone who's running 20 miles per weekend consistently, where they don't have to worry too much about 13.1. So if it's the longest run you've ever done, that's tricky. You're going to probably need to be near your easiest run, because the completion of the distance is such a humongous part of the challenge. If you feel tremendously comfortable running 13.1 miles, well, at that point, you really get to focus on how fast can you run 13.1 miles. And if this is once again, your first time ever attempting the distance, it's very, very rare that I send first timers at half marathon and marathons out at anything much past like the high end of their easy pace. There's just a lot of learning that goes in to the race. There's a lot of learning that happens during the race. And what I want for those people, for those first time racers that are out there experiencing this, is to have a pleasurable experience. And I'll tell you, I've come across a lot of finish lines where I took it easy and just had a fun run up there and felt great at kind of a time that didn't excite me. I knew I was able to do more. And I've also come across finish lines feeling completely beaten down and broken with faster times that I did not feel as good about. So especially one more time for first timers, take the pressure off yourself in terms of pacing. Go out nice and easy, have fun. It's absolutely the way to make this a sustainable part of your fitness routine. Also, very important for picking kind of the pace, especially at the start of the pace, is what is the warm-up situation of your race. Small town races, small field size races, very easy to warm up usually. You go out, you can run a mile or so, you walk around the starting line, get in the corral 5 minutes before the race and take off and run. Those are awesome races. There's a lot of advantages. If you're doing the big city races, the New York, DC's, where Chicago, LA, etc., where there are thousands and thousands and thousands of participants, these starting lines are hectic, they're chaotic, and it's very, very difficult to warm up. So you might have to, as part of your race plan, actually plan a bit of a warm up into the race itself, where you want to go out a little bit easier, and then after a mile or two, and you're starting to settle in and open up, you can kind of settle into that race pace. So it's just something to consider when you think about what will be the warm-up structure of your race, because you got to have it. You're not going to hit that kind of peak capacity right off the gate. You can try to kind of move around a little bit in the corrals, but it's going to take you a little bit of time to hit that kind of peak potential. I would say for most, well, let me back into this the other way. For elite runners, they are running the half marathon basically at threshold and right around 1 hour. It's like a pro runner half marathon time. So not many of those people out there running the race at threshold. So when we think about half marathon pace, the way that we wrote it into this pacing calculator here, that is about at 97% of threshold. So very high percentage of threshold. So this is going to be a pace that's probably for runners running somewhere between an hour and 20, maybe even an hour and 40-minute half marathons, because they're sustaining this very high percentage of threshold. The reason I'm talking about that is that most runners are not running all the way at that listed half marathon pace. We talked about it early in this challenge when people were intimidated by the half marathon pace, that it's a little bit more of a training pace and an aspirational pace, where if you're comfortable with the distance, and you've experienced with the distance, and you've raced it a lot, and you're really pushing, like that is a pace that you are moving towards as your kind of trajectory. But once again, for most runners, you're going to be somewhere between easy pace and that half marathon pace, somewhere in the middle there. And I think a great way to go into a lot of these races, especially endurance races, is to start a little bit on the slower end of that range. So that is a very big range all of a sudden. If we talk easy race to half marathon pace, and where's kind of the middle of that, is you start to pick this area where you feel comfortable with. And I mentioned previously, you feel comfortable that you could sustain for 13.1 miles. Then as the race progresses, it might be that you set it up as a little bit of a progression run for yourself, where if you're feeling good at the 5K mark, it might be moving a little bit forward. If you're feeling good at the 10K mark, you might be able to move a little bit forward. Similarly, there are times where if things are not feeling good, you don't move forward at all. What you would do at that point, try to sustain the effort you're holding right then. In these endurance races, a lot can change. You can go from feeling good to bad to good again. It's just working through it mentally, working through it physically, trying to adjust your pace a little bit, adjust your effort. But once again, this pace is probably going to fall between the easy pace and your half marathon pace. So why I can't dictate it exactly is that it depends so much upon training. That's why we do these workouts where we're using half marathon pace, we're using easy pace, we're using marathon pace. We're trying to find what the differences are and what your feel is, your rate of perceived exertion at those different paces. So we're training all the way up to the level of threshold and everywhere in between. And somewhere along that, for different athletes, you're going to find that comfort zone, hopefully, of a pace you feel like you can hold for 13.1 miles. And if you don't feel like you have it nailed down, I would start on the slower end of the range of your expectation. And as I mentioned, I would work it as a progression run, trying to speed up a little bit as the race progresses. Don't expect to start at the high end of your range and progress and progress and progress and progress past that. That's pretty tough. What you're looking for, if you're really going for the gold and you're going to start near that half marathon pace, you're looking for even splits or maybe just minutely negative splits, but it's going to be mostly even. You're not going to have that huge burst at the end, most likely, unless you do. And then, cheers to you. So hopefully that helped. If there are questions about pacing, this is absolutely the time. Bring them early and often, and we'll talk about them on the Facebook group, talk about them again next week. But between now and certainly the end of our next long run or 2 long runs out at the end of week 9, you want to be going into that week feeling very comfortable, or at least very sure of where you're hoping to start that race pace-wise. Next question was nutrition. I'm having trouble, haven't tried anything on a long run yet, not even water. I do chew gum though, which, side note, never heard about that. Feel fine without anything, but it seems like I should have something anyway. What would be the most basic minimal thing I should do? So, great question. Inevitable, despite our earliest talks, that everyone should start early. Even with athletes I work with one-on-one, get to this point 2 weeks out and be like, I have failed to experiment nutritionally. Happens all the time. What I would adjust right now is very, very, very little. The last thing you want to do is start introducing new things at this part of the process. They can ruin some of these final long runs, which is not what you want. You want these last long runs to go well, to execute according to plan, so that you can hopefully feel confident going into your race here. So, although I don't love the planning getting to this point, and while I would kind of advise it to go a little bit differently, over the last 8 weeks, we don't have that option anymore. So I think the most basic things you could do at this point are to make sure, especially on race day, you get up very, very early, because you are going to want to have some super light breakfast, probably in advance of that race, but you've got to allow digestion time. You have to allow time for that to settle in your stomach. So something that is very comfortable to you, something that you are very, very confident you can eat first thing in the morning and have a positive reaction. The second thing I would do on our most minimal list is just drink water to thirst. Drinking water to thirst, I've found is my favorite policy of recommending. If you're on the race course, if you're thirsty, drink water. If you're not thirsty, don't drink water. Drink when you are thirsty. Your body has a pretty great instinct of letting us know when we should be taking in fluids. What I would not do is take any of the on-course race nutrition, whether it's sports drink or fuel, unless you are incredibly comfortable or experienced with those things while exercising, while it kind of sounds like that is not the case. So water to thirst, super light breakfast, but something in your stomach before you go into that event. It's usually a long time between waking up and the start of a race itself. Those would be the most minimal. And then for everybody, at this point, tweaking is about over fuel-wise. What we're doing at this point is just repeating the process of stuff we've experimented with already, but we're not making many major adjustments. Really, if teeny tweaks, but that's it. So if you haven't experimented, if you're waiting till your longest long runs, it's too late. Do what you've been doing. It's okay. You've gotten thus far. You'll get a little further, but at this point, consistency is key. So do what's gotten you to this point of the process. Our next question here is, can you talk about what to expect after our half marathon? Do we keep up a similar schedule or give ourselves a recovery period? This is a great question. We're only a few weeks out. It's absolutely, we should be thinking about what comes next year. So you absolutely do need a recovery after racing a half marathon. It's a hard effort. Racing in general is a hard effort, whether it's a mile to a marathon to an ultra marathon. So the recovery time will certainly vary athlete to athlete based upon the training history, based upon your experience with the distance, based upon between your on your training load, based upon the intensity of your race itself. So there's a lot that goes in there. But at a bare minimum, I like to give athletes a couple days off after a big race. That's typically doing mostly nothing. I like to say walk the dog pace. So, for those with pets out there, get the dog, feel free, go out, spend a nice long time walking. If you don't have a dog, that's okay. You can also just take yourself on a walk. It's just fine. But we want to be walking, want to keep things nice and light. That's what we want to be doing a couple days after the race. So if you're a newer runner, and this is 13.1 is, a stretch, the longest you've ever run, might take as much as a week for your legs really to start feeling back to normal. I don't want you to take a full week off, however. I might have you take a full week off from running, but I want us to phase back in walking, swimming, cycling, all at a low, very low intensity level, put some cross training back into your week after that few days. The reason I don't want that extended time off is you built up all this fitness. You just ran a half marathon. How wonderful. You lose it really fast. So you do have a window. You got about, a week, you get a little bit of a drop off. 2 weeks, you get more of a drop off. And if things go past 2 weeks, you get a cliff of a drop off. So we want to recover from the half marathon. We want to get back into some activity. We want to keep it nice and light. Don't want to jump straight back into intensity. This is tricky for athletes, especially if you've got multiple races lined up. You still kind of have to meet yourself where you are. So, if I were looking at it as a 3-4 week kind of runway coming off of a race back into the peak of training, I would think the race itself, take a couple days to a week off, phase back in, very light activity, whether it's running or cross training. Then I like to think of it as a reverse taper. So kind of coming back in in a week, very similar to right now, all easy running, shorter mileage, well pulled back from our volume peak. Then if I have time, I want to add my volume back first. So maybe I would take a week like we're in right now with a longer long run, longer workouts. I would focus on getting that volume back to peak. And then the final thing I would do after volume is peaked is I would phase back into intensity. So it's probably about a 3 to 4 week process to get back to your peak level of training after a key race like this. There's no big deal. Enjoy the process. As long as you're maintaining that workload too, maintaining that volume, you're going to maintain an incredibly high level of fitness, even without hitting those really demanding workouts. Similarly, you're allowing your body to get ready to continue taking that strain in the season to come. So hopefully that helps answer a little bit of kind of what to do on the flip side of this race. All right, very kind of funny but incredibly topical conversation or question here. Drinking cups of water on the race course, not a skill that we just come naturally to. So the question is, if we grab a cup of water at one of the stops, is it even humanly possible to drink it without spilling it all over ourselves and still hold our pace? So the short answer is yes, and the more complex answer is maybe. So it is not the world's easiest thing to do. As a matter of fact, it's probably fairly challenging to drink from an open cup while running at a high pace down the road. It can be learned. However, in the middle of your A race is probably also not the time to learn it. So I think it was posted in response to the question on the Facebook page. The quickest, easiest tip that I can give to anyone who's trying out there is to take the cup, pinch the top so that it creates a bit of a seal across the top edge. Use the created little spout on the corner to try to drink from the spout instead of the open top of the entire cup. It's going to give you a little bit more control, a little bit more directed line of motion of actually being able to consume that fluid without spilling it all over your clothes, splashing yourself in the eyes, choking, etc. So that's kind of the tip of pinch the top, use the created spout to try to sip the water a little bit, then toss the cup clearly to a trash receptacle or area where they're being accumulated, and a volunteer can retrieve them, hopefully. So this does not work for everybody. And as I mentioned, if you haven't, the time to practice are on B races, the less important races that you run during the year that you can goof around, you can experiment, you can try out pace, you can try out nutrition, you can try out drinking from cups, etc. It's not fun at all to kind of either one, spill water or Gatorade all over yourself, two, to kind of get it in your eye, three, to like not be able to get it down your throat while trying to run and trying to breathe, which is pretty important to the process of running as well. So if you're uncomfortable with it, what I would actually advise is probably to take just a quick walk break through that water station. It's going to very minimally affect your overall race time. It's going to allow you to actually get the fluid into your mouth instead of just onto the outside of your mouth. So that is what I advise. You could probably do the whole stop in 10 to 15 seconds of walking, place the cup down, get back to it. You're still moving forward, taking in your nutrition. Would be my better option. So I thought it would be interesting, or not interesting, it would be worthwhile at least to talk about overall water station courtesies, especially if you're going to do that walk coming into the water station there. So water station courtesy, you want to try as best as possible to stay out of other people's way. So what I like to do coming into the water station is kind of line it up from the start, make sure I'm not going to cut anyone. I like to make eye contact with the volunteer that I'm hoping to go to. If you have a table, it's hard to make eye contact, but you can do the best you can. So I like to make eye contact with the volunteer, and then I actually point at the volunteer so they know that I'm coming to them and I'm hoping to grab the cup from their hands. This is a lot better and it's a little bit nicer than just yanking it out as I run by. Also, within reason, as long as I have breath, like to say thank you. It goes a long way. Those people who are standing there getting pelted by water for many hours, so say thank you if you have a little bit of breath. If you're planning to stop and walk the water station, which as I mentioned, I think is a great idea for a lot of people, it is courteous to the people around you to just announce that you plan to stop so that and it's good for you so they do not plow directly into the back of you. What I like to do if I plan to stop at the water station and go to a walk is I just raise one hand and I will audibly say stopping. So hopefully the people around me know that, or stopping or walking, either would be fine, but the people around me know that I plan to come to a stop. They can pick a cup down the way and go on their merry way. Once you come to that walk, actually move aside from the water station. So I see it all the time. People grab the cup, start sipping, walk along the water station, which kind of in essence blocks every single other person from getting in there. So get your cup, take 2 steps away from the tables or volunteers so that other people can get in there, get that cup. When you're done, make sure you have a clear path to either put that cup in a trash can, on the ground, and then discard it without trying to hit any other runners. I have memories, a bit of a guilt-ridden dream back from 2013 running the New York City Marathon, where I just hit mile 3, hit someone square in the foot with a full cup of water. I still feel bad to this day. I hope they're okay out there. And then naturally get back onto your run. As I mentioned, incredibly small time loss to do this. If it helps you actually get your fluid in and feel more comfortable doing it, it's absolutely the way to go instead of trying to pinch and drink if you're not comfortable with that. Next question was, please discuss proper running technique going downhill. So great question, very relevant. Most of these courses, especially as you get into long distance courses, you're going to get some uphill, you're going to get some downhill. If you work out, especially if you're doing a lot of hills or long runs on the tread, you don't have many downhills. So the key, in my opinion, at least for downhill running, is to maintain a nice high cadence. So you want to take that cadence from your flat and you want to maintain it onto the downhill. Naturally, what people tend to do coming onto these inclines is reduce their cadence. They get these big, long, loping strides. So a few things happen. Their weight comes back, their upper body tips back, their stride length is long, and they start really hard heel lands. So you're doing a few things here. You're actually heel braking yourself as you're coming down the hill, so you're taking more impact into your legs, up into your hip, into your low back. You are wearing out your quads that are going to basically serve as shock absorbers going down that hill. And in essence, you're also going slower. So I like to think about giving the prompt of you want to be kind of smooth like water rolling down a hill. So what are the things that go with that? Maintain a nice high cadence. So you want to be just ever so lightly kind of tipped forward going down the hill. You want to be having that fast turnover, trying to keep your footfall more towards the middle of your foot. Probably not going to be the front of your foot on a downhill. That's a little bit too scary, but middle of your foot, nice high turnover. What you want to be thinking about, and I say the smooth like water thing, is you want to be thinking about as kind of gentle as possible. You want to remove the heavy impacts. You want to remove the hard landings. You want to remove that kind of shocking feeling coming into you. And so if you are able to keep that cadence high, you're like really able to turn over. It should feel smooth rolling down the hill. You want kind of the least resistance possible. You want to just kind of be descending smoothly and then settle back into the rest of the race. So one final time, nice high cadence. Try to match your turnover on the flat when you go onto that downhill. It will save your legs for later in the race. And all right, here, this is for a select crowd here, but did have some questions about the New York City half topography. So it is a course I'm very familiar with. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes and do a high-level rundown of New York City half. It is one of my favorite races in the whole world as well. So if you're not running it this year, put it on your running bucket list. It is a great one. So overarching themes of the New York City half is 1, it is an awesome race. 2, it is not flat, but it's not that hilly either. I don't care what people say. Just kidding, it's not that bad. I don't think there's a grade on the entire course, or at least a sustained grade that's more than the 4%. So the work we've been doing right here, over these last 7 weeks and other run challenges with all this incline between 3 and 4%, it wasn't by accident. That's the grade that's most familiar in New York City. So 3 and 4% is going to be kind of your peak incline and decline out on this race course. So the course, it starts in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, which is incredibly beautiful. Get there very early. I was talking about warm-ups earlier, but these big city races, this one in particular, it's mayhem. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of runners. New York Road Runners does an incredible job putting it on. But get there early. No need to cause panic to the start to your race day. This will go the same for the rock and roll runners down in DC. And I know there are a couple other rock and rolls that same weekend. The bigger the race, the earlier you need to get there to have a nice, comfortable morning. So back to NYC half, miles 1 and 3. Starting in Prospect Park, you have 2 gentle climbs and 2 gentle descents to kind of maneuver out of Prospect Park onto the main road into Brooklyn. These are some little climbs early in the race. The grade is relatively low, both up and down. So this is a great opportunity in this race to practice a little bit of restraint. You don't want to go out too hard. You don't want to be pushing too hard on that uphill early in this race. You want to kind of ease into it because there are going to be some really favorable race miles to come. So as you're approaching mile 5 of this course, you're coming to the Manhattan Bridge, which is going to be one of the bigger climbs in the whole race, but it's incredibly, incredibly manageable. Looking at about 3/4 mile long to the top of the bridge, about 3% grade. Then you have another long 3/4 mile, 3% grade decline. This is a beautiful, beautiful view of the New York City skyline. Kind of a cool old bridge in New York in general. So I think you don't dread this one. This is a great time. Take in the scenery, have fun when you're out on the bridge. It also gets eerily quiet out on the bridges because there's no spectator support. So you'll kind of see a lot through Brooklyn. You'll definitely get some when you get to Manhattan, but kind of enjoy that silence you get for a brief period out on the bridge. Miles 6 through 10, you are coming up the east side of Manhattan on the FDR highway. So this is, I think, the one time of the year where there are pedestrians out on the FDR on purpose. So this is a almost pancake flat section, 4 miles right here, coming off the decline of the Manhattan Bridge. So between the peak of that Manhattan Bridge and mile 10, you have a great opportunity to probably run some of your most kind of quality miles of the race. So this is where I'd be really looking to settle into the pace that I plan to run the entire rest of it. You're obviously going to fatigue a little bit as you come into that final 5K. So right there from the top of the bridge to mile 10 is certainly the opportunity to make any moves you plan to make on the race course. Mile 10, you're going to be climbing off the FDR highway. You're going to be taking a ramp which is going to bring you up relatively short incline onto East 42nd Street. East 42nd, you're going to be cutting past Grand Central Station right into Times Square. So once you get to the top of this ramp, it's going to be relatively flat, straight over to Times Square. You're going to take a right in Times Square on Broadway, and that's going to kind of send you heading north towards Central Park. Central Park is where the finish of the race is. Not a bad spot to end either. So you're going to enter the park around mile 12. And so while mile 10 and 11 coming through Midtown, coming through Times Square and up to the park are going to be relatively flat. Once you get into Central Park, it's certainly going to be a rolling 1 mile, 1 1/10 mile to the finish line. So don't think it's all over as soon as you enter the park. There's still a pretty good stretch of road, and you're going to have a rolling mile to the finish line where, glory is achieved. So that is kind of the quick overview of New York City Half. If you have specific questions, certainly a race I've run, really, really enjoy. You're going to have an amazing experience running it. And like I said, if you haven't run it, absolutely add it to your running bucket list. It's a great one. Well, friends, that is all for now. So have an incredible rest of week 7, an amazing week 8, and I'll see you back next week.